Good morning to all of you who are joining us this morning to learn more about how to do business in the Netherlands. My name is Jim Porter. I'm the Director of Strategy and Operations here at World Trade Center Utah, and it's my pleasure to introduce everyone and get us kicked off this morning. For those of you who don't know, the World Trade Center Utah is just one member of a network of more than 300 organizations that span the globe that form the World Trade Center Network. We exist here in Utah to accelerate growth for Utah companies, which we do in partnership with the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity and other fantastic partners here in the state that we work with. I spend most of my day working with member companies who are interested in expanding overseas, most often to Europe. And as we help them think through where it is that they ought to start doing business in Europe first, I find myself regularly recommending the Netherlands as a place to go because of its business-friendly environment, because of the ease of doing business there, because of the strength of its economy and its role as a gateway to Europe. So very excited today to hear from some fantastic specialists and speakers, executives who are going to tell you more about what it means to do business in the Netherlands, how to do it, how to get started, and what some of the intricacies are of doing business in this market. To kick us off, we're going to hear from Marie Jose Nasset with the World Trade Center Twente, who's one of our great partners in Europe. Following her, we're going to hear from Joost Bronken Peters from Legro Gilkerken and their law group. And we'll also hear from Hans van Linden, who is from RSM Netherlands. We're very excited to hear from the three of these individuals. Marie, I'm going to hand it over to you to get us started. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Marie-José Nazette. I am from the World Trade Center Twente in the east of the Netherlands. So one of these members of this wonderful network of over 300 World Trade Centers. It's true that we are very easy to do business with as a country. Also given the facts, besides the reasons Jim named, that more than 90% of the people in the Netherlands speak and write English very well. If you land and establish yourself in the Netherlands, want to do business, incorporate, the first thing you will need is a business address to register yourself in the Chamber of Commerce and also to incorporate your business legally. That is what we provide in a monthly subscription. So we as a World Trade Center provide a professional business address to you. Now I would like to share my screen with you to show this on our website, a dedicated website page. And let me share it, by which I can take you through the process, the advantages, and this website will be shared in the post-event email. As you can see, basically this line says a lot. We call this program to host you, to settle you in the Netherlands, your business, to make your time to the market shorter. We do this in cooperation with our own expat center and with the East Netherlands Investment Agency from our government, who provides free services to establish yourself legally. They guide you along the way. I would like to point out our virtual office service, which include the address and a digital forwarding of your documents. Here we read a beautiful review of one of our South African entrepreneurs who did the journey already and is now successfully operating from the Netherlands. We'd like to point out that the part of the Netherlands where Twente is finds itself is the Eastern Netherlands, which is close to the German border. We really are the gateway to Europe. The The advantage of establishing in the Eastern Netherlands is that the way the standard of living, the cost of living are much lower than in the Amsterdam region. So this could be an advantage. We also would like to point out that there is a great technical university near our World Trade Center and an incubator center, Novelty. We focus on 3 clusters, 3 sectors of companies. It is agribusiness, energy, and medical technology. We are situated here. Beautiful gateway to the rest of Europe. On our website, you can see a list of companies. We have dedicated service providers who can help you. Some of our guests are speaking in this webinar as well. In the East Netherlands, we have some regional and local providers in the field of tax, notaries, and so on. Can you see now I changed to Excel, to the countries of origin? I hope so.
No.
No, you can't. Okay, then I will speak from it. Already in 2 years, 33 companies established themselves in our World Trade Center. They are from Australia, Estonia, Germany, India, Singapore, South Africa, United Kingdom, and the United States of America. So we may say we're very experienced. Yes, and this is about it, what I would like to tell to you. And perhaps put all your questions in the Q&A, or you can contact me always afterwards the webinar. I hope all is clear, that we provide that you can set up your business in our World Trade Center. You can also use the branding of the World Trade Center. And if you decide to come to the Netherlands, I wish you good luck and all the best success in business. Thank you for your attention.
All right, Joost, I think you are good to go.
Yep. Okay. Thank you very much.
And we're sharing.
Yeah. Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank WTC Utah, of course, for giving us the opportunity to present doing business in the Netherlands. I fully agree with Jim that it's, for me at least, the first country of first choice, and for many other companies. And in this morning for you, afternoon for us, we'll explain in this presentations. Well, my name is Joost Franke Peters, and I'm a partner, corporate law, M&A, mergers and acquisitions, and head of the international desk of Lago Gilkekker. These are my contact details. So any questions you can ask during the Q&A at the end and also in the chat, but feel free to call me or contact me by email if you have any questions afterwards. And I also understand that the slides will be shared afterwards. So this is the topics I would like to use. I will first introduce my law firm to you. Then I will briefly touch on how to enter the EU market and some topics that are really important every time I talk to companies who want to set up in Europe. It's always about IP, it's always about privacy, it's always about labor. So I also briefly touch on these subjects. So my firm is, we have 3 offices in the Netherlands. I'm from the office in The Hague, and our office is located in the WTC in The Hague. So that's also what we share. We are part of the WTC family. We have 100 employees, 60 lawyers, and we are on the top 35 of law firms in the Netherlands. These are the areas of law that we can offer to you. So all the areas of law that are interested for companies, and from IP to corporate M&A, real estate, litigation, finance, privacy, employment law. Those are the main areas of law that we can help you with. We do that in integrated teams. So we work together in employment, corporate, mergers and acquisitions. We also have a big Asia desk. where we help European Dutch companies to set up their business in Asia. And we also have a lot of clients from Asia doing business in Europe, IP and finance, so we can fully cater to all your legal needs. We also have a sector approach, and I see a lot of the sectors overlap with your sectors, Marie-José, new energy, agri and food. We also have health and life sciences and government and real estate, and of course ESG. And the SDG is becoming much more important, and you will see that a lot in our legal work that we do from M&A, but also in contracting, is that these sustainable goals are playing a much bigger role in day-to-day life, especially legally, and also with all sorts of rules from the EU that you will have to follow when you are in Europe. We have an international desk, and we're also part of an extensive network in Europe. So if you need advice in other countries in Europe, Belgium, UK, or Germany, France, or Eastern Europe countries, we can help you. And these are also the topics that we advise. If you look at international companies, and we advise on selling products, drafting contracts, logistics issues, IP, setting up the company, of course, that's where it starts, or with an M&A case. And if something goes wrong, hopefully not, we can also act in disputes on your behalf. Why the Netherlands? Well, the Netherlands is the first choice for a lot of well-known multinational corporations, and you will recognize quite a few of them. They all have their headquarters in the Netherlands, and that's for a reason. And the main reason, of course, is that the Netherlands is really the gateway to Europe. If you look at this picture from Europe, we are in the center of Europe, and this sort of yellow banana, that covers almost 60% of the whole European GDP. And that this area can be reached within 24 hours from the Netherlands, because we have excellent logistics services, good railways. That's one of the reasons, because of also the port of Rotterdam, and one of the biggest ports in the world and the biggest port in Europe, is that so many companies are setting up their business and starting in the Netherlands and also have their headquarters. That's one of the biggest reasons. Well, we're also very much connected, which is of course sort of a sanity thing today. We're the #1 internet exchange, the most connected. Like Marie-José said, everybody speaks English. It's very easy to go through day-to-day life. We score very high on quality of life, but for the rest, you see some other reasons why the Netherlands is really the first choice for a lot of non-European multinational corporations. So about this advertisement for the Netherlands, now the more practical things is, how do you enter the European market? You can actually, there's a few ways how you can do it. The easy way, of course, is your products are in the US, you put them in a container, ship them by plane or by boat to the Netherlands. You have your local representative, your local agent, or your local company here, just a Dutch company, sells the products, bears all the responsibility, and that's it. That's a way how you can do, how you can present yourself in the Netherlands. If you want to have one step more, you can set up your own company, your own presence, and you become more localized. Also for your customers, they see that they do business with a Dutch or European company, which creates more trust. It's easy to do business. You can set up a joint venture. I will touch on that later. You can use the local people from your joint venture partner, make use of the local knowledge, which might accelerate starting up instead of setting up from greenfield. And of course, you can also acquire a company where you can the employees of the local company become your own employees, and it will also accelerate your business as compared to setting up your own company. If you compare these three ways of doing business together, setting up a company, you can set up a rep office, a representative office, or indeed your own company or a joint venture. If you compare them, that's what I did in this slide, is a rep office, very easy to set up. However, it's not a separate legal entity, meaning that all the risks with the business in the Netherlands or in Europe are with your US company. The question is whether you really want to do that. There's no capital required. You will have 100% control. It can do business and make a profit. And you see a lot of rep offices in other countries that's not allowed, but in the Netherlands it's okay. And incorporation takes 1 to 2 weeks. I always say, after we receive all the documents that are necessary and that you have to prepare, we need some legalized documents about your US company. And that might take a little bit more than 1 to 2 weeks, but in principle, it's very easy. That's the same actually for a Dutch company. We call it in Dutch a besloten vennootschap, which might be translated to limited in the US. The biggest advantage is that all the risks are with the Dutch company. So your US company is not involved in the risks part. It will stay within the Dutch company. There's no capital required. €1 is enough. Although I would always recommend to use a little bit more capital, because more capital, and it's registered, it's public, will create more trust. You will have 100% control. The directors can be US nationals, so it's no need to hire a Dutch person. And the shareholder, because your US company will be the shareholder, is only liable to the extent of the amount of the capital. And it also takes 1 to 2 weeks. Well, at last, the joint venture, it's also usually a BV, a limited, besloten vennootschap. All the risks are with the Dutch company, that's the same. You usually need to contribute something like capital or contribution in kind, like IP or some assets. There's joint control, of course. Joint venture is like a marriage. So you're not 100% in control, depending, of course, on the part you invest. Sometimes you have more control than 50%, but usually it's joint control, because your Dutch partner will require some control on the bigger and more fundamental decisions that have to be taken. Directors can be US nationals. And of course, apart from the incorporation documents, you need a joint venture agreement, or if you take over a company in merger acquisitions, and you still need to have the SPA, but then the company is already there. So setting up is pretty easy. How does it look like? The picture. This is a typical structure that a lot of US companies use. Also the ones I showed in the one of the first slides. They have a Dutch holding company owning a Dutch company or German company or some other companies. They all make profit and will remit that to the Dutch holding. Of course, there are some taxes involved, but Hans will talk about that later. This is a typical structure that a lot of US companies use, and the Dutch holding sort of serves as their headquarters in the Netherlands. Setting up a company, doing business in Europe, we have to talk about IP, because IP is getting much more important nowadays. And if you talk about IP, you also talk about protection of IP. If you look at the European situation with regard to IP, you can register a trademark, you can register, of course, patent, which can be an invention or utility model or design. Trade secrets, you can protect copyright, of course, and contracts. You can also use contracts to protect your IP, but I would also definitely recommend to register IP where it's possible, because IP is not protected automatically, except copyright, but you have to register your IP. It's territorial. So if you have registered something in the US, it doesn't automatically mean that you have the same protection in Europe. And unluckily, we have a first come, first serve principle. So please register what you think are important IP instruments for your company before you enter the market, because otherwise somebody else will register and then we have to get it back. It's possible, but it will always cost you more money than doing it correct and when you start before entering the market. I get a lot of questions about this topic, protection of privacy and personal data. And of course, what is privacy? Well, to me, if you really sort of take away all the difficult stuff about GDPR, what it comes down is to this simple rule: European data has to stay in Europe. So if you want to set up your European company and you are collecting data, you should make sure that you can use European servers so that the data is not stored in the US, because then you might have a problem if you don't do this in a proper way. So that's the basic rule: is European data has to stay in Europe. Of course, you have to breach. If there's a breach, you have to report it with undue delay, and there are nowadays big penalties involved. So you really have to take care of this topic. Setting up in the Netherlands with regard to data protection and the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation in Europe, has its advantages because our authorities can be easily approached. You can call them, you can talk to them, you can ask them questions, and they are not there to fine you immediately. They want you to follow the law, and that's where they're going to be approached and where they can also be of help. Whereas if you see other GDPR authorities like in France or Germany, they first give you a big fine. Our authorities are more, they want you to follow the law and want to help you follow the law. So that's a big advantage. Another advantage of starting in the Netherlands. Over setting up a company is one thing. You will need personnel, because otherwise you cannot do business. And of course, you can hire local people, and that's very easy. You need a labor agreement, and then you can hire local people. But if you send people from abroad, you need to follow. You need to have permits, and actually, the most common used scheme in the Netherlands is the knowledge migration scheme. It's a two-step process. First, your company has to be recognized as a sponsor, and in that respect, it's very important that you, before you decide to set up your BV or your company in the Netherlands, that you contact the Netherlands Foreign Investment Agency. They have various offices in the US. And if you want to know the addresses, please let me know. I can get you in touch with them, because they can give you a letter of recommendation. And with that letter, it's much easier to get a recognized sponsorship, because you don't need to submit a qualified business plan. But they only support certain sectors. If they don't support you, then you have to file a qualified business plan. So it's much easier. So I always recommend talk to NFIA, talk to the Netherlands Foreign Investment Authority before actually setting up, because once the company is set up, you are not allowed to enter into their program. Once this first step is completed, you can apply for the person's permit, which is a one step for work and living. We have some minimum salary requirements. But if your business plan is qualified, usually the second step is not a big problem. It takes a couple of months to follow this whole process, so it's also good to start early. But one big takeaway for this slide and this topic is contact NFIA first. And of course, there are some tax benefits, but Hans will talk about them later. Well, this is in a very short, brief overview of how to do business in the Netherlands, and the bigger topics. If you have any questions, please let me know in the chat or in the Q&A, or send them to me afterwards. But it's in my view, it's about preparation. Start on time, and take notice of a few things that you want to do before you go to the Netherlands. So I would like to thank you very much for your attention, and hopefully we're going to meet you soon in the Netherlands, in our beautiful country. And I wish you a successful future when you start in the Netherlands. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joost. That's indeed everything that you said intertwines with my subject. So we're going to do that next. And that is more kind of like, what do you need from the practical side, but then administrative and tax-wise? Well, as you may appreciate, there will be a lot of info in the sheets on RSM itself. So I'll give a short introduction, because it's not about RSM, but about your needs. But RSM in itself, it's about 60,000 people. We have 830 offices, quite substantial. Also in the US, we have a sort of outline of 12,000 people over there. Majority of them are within the accountancy and tax, but now also with the other parts of consultancy, like ESG strategy and emerging technologies, as you can see right here. And this is exactly where you would like to have a joint talk with Joost and me, because in the end of the day, we cover all the items that you need to have once you set up and make that choice of creating an entity over here in the Netherlands. But if you do that, there's a lot what you need to be considerate of. First of all, if you go to the Netherlands, you have to look at the climate in itself. Well, as you've already heard from the people that were prior to me, both said that it's a good gateway, logistics, everything is quite up to speed. And to be quite honest, I've done more than 500 introductions into Europe, and it really is. And there are a few other companies, other countries that are also in line with that. So Germany, France, and the UK. But if you have a closer look at the Netherlands, it's indeed that blue, yellow banana that you were talking about. Craziness, because in less than 48 hours, you cover the whole of Europe, and in 24 hours, you cover about 2/3 of Europe, logistically, in an easy way. And next to that, of course, it is the easiness of doing business that takes it away. What can we do? What can you benefit from that little country? Because of course it's a little country. I think Utah is about 8 times as big as the Netherlands. So if you have a closer look at the Netherlands, it's 80 miles wide and 150 miles from north to south. So it's really small, but still there are 80 million people over there. And we have a lot of universities, graduated people, and it's kind of like easy to get things done. And it's not because we are kind of like easy to go with, but simply because we've done it before. You will see in Eastern European countries that it's difficult to get every license. We've done that. You will see that custom brokers have done the job already. If you think about it, more than 52% of the European imports are going through the Netherlands. So there is some practical handiness there. And that's fun. And that's the really therefore the place to go to. The education is right. We have a lot of expertise on the other sides on technology. As you heard also in Twente, but in Eindhoven and in that's Wageningen for farms. In Eindhoven, we have a tech, how's it called? Tech hub. In Delft, there is a huge there's a huge university that goes with from defense to automotive to technical stuff. You will find the people, but you can also bring them, as Joost just told you. What do we do? Because that's what you need to know. Besides the fact that once you make that choice for going to the Netherlands, you have to know what kind of practical stuff you get into. First of that is you have to structure your legal side. Joost explained to you how that's typically done, that there are, you can do it three-way, and I totally agree with that. And what we as Dutch people always do, we start off with a little one-person kind of thing, but knowing my US colleagues and therefore not knowing you, but knowing how Americans work, they would kind of like have everything in place because it will be a success anyway. And I totally agree with that, because from every foreign direct investment we've seen coming from the US to the Netherlands, if it's well prepared, set up, like Joost said, with a company, with all steps made, you will see that it's easy to be successful in the Netherlands as well, because it's the gateway to Europe. You will gain a lot of knowledge on, while you're doing that, your competition, and you will gain also the structured way that everything can be solved through via the Netherlands to other countries. So I'm totally in favor of being prepared, but then where do you need to prepare for? So if you look at the first layer, that's the easy one. You could have imagined that. It's setting up the entity, taking into account whatever you need to do from an administrative point, also from a tax point. But there's also the location. You've done that because you choose for the Netherlands. But then you go, what's there? What's there more? What don't you know? Because that's the difficulty where Joost and I always like to step in. The fun part is helping you with the stuff that you're not aware of, but still need to be compliant with. And it's easy once you do that from the first step. And that's where layer 2 comes in. It's then really the what do you need to comply with? And that's something that we can make. And for each and every company, of course, that's different. But grosso modo, it's quite clear that you would have to have tax, accountancy, but also ESG and technology stuff. That entails quite a few items, but it's not more difficult or more compliance burden than what you're already used to, because you are used to having taxes as well. You deal with the IRS, you deal with sales and local taxes, and admittedly, we have a VAT, and that's kind of like the same as sales and local tax, and it's the same difficulty. So don't see people, but I'm for sure that a lot of people are now going like, oh no, not sales and local tax, because that's a burden. But okay, it is there, and it's called VAT. But systematically, it's a little bit more easy in Europe. So it doesn't take away your appetite, I can assure you. There you have also the risk management. What am I stepping into? If you look at the US, it's obvious that you know a lot of that and that you are well aware of all the regulation that you have over there. But the regulations that you have on the side of the what Joost already mentioned, but there are also importation rights, there are also other litigation stuff. Those are items regulated and you need to know them, but only, and be prepared on that one, but only once you are stepping in. So not being 100% aware upfront is not a real difficulty, but Joost and I always like to hear about what are your plans, because if there is a license to be obtained, if there is a import license for taxes to be obtained, or is there something like a working permit to be obtained, then there is a time element to it. And the time element is of importance for you. Like Joost said, you start with the NFIA, you start with us, you start with your group over here, but then first steps point out what you're going to do, and then you will see that the easiness is really there. Doing something in hindsight is always a little bit more difficult. I don't have to tell you that. You have in layer 2 also what we have here, the behavior. The behavior of Dutch people versus US people is not that big, but we are a little bit more direct. As you recognized when we started, it was an immediate start because we know what we want to tell, we know what we want to bring, and we know what we have. Be prepared for that one as well. It's fun once you get to know us, but we can imagine that it's sometimes a little bit direct and a little bit kind of like, okay, you tell a lot, and now what we need to do, we'll put it on paper as well. But at least it's a small difference. You will see that in the whole of Europe, this tends to be an item versus the US people. What's then the next? Then you're going to grow. And that's exactly where we want to prepare you for. Because if you have a closer look, from all FDI programs that came in from the US, and there were about 372 in the past 2 years. So in the period of Corona, still companies came into the Netherlands, and out of those, everybody still exists, which automatically means that you will grow. If you have the plan, if you go along with it, and you have the market insights that you already have, there is a reason why you make that step, and for sure you will make it there. Because if you look at your 420 million US people, there's also about that same number in the European region, and they're all reachable, all within 1/3 of the distance that you're used to right now. So what you need to do then is have a look at, okay, you have the global trends, you have your own products over from the US, and you bring them into the European community, or services, that really doesn't matter. But then you have to think of how we're going to do that. What is the strategic way, and what is my future in Europe? And there you will see that there could be a difference, because in the US, you are kind of used to, once I have one successful product, it will be okay for each and every market. That's not always the case in Europe. In Europe, you might want to diversify. You might want to twist a little. Nice example would be, for instance, McDonald's, who made a real difference in the sense of, in each and every country, we do something local as well, because then the acceptance from the European local persons is more likely to be there. So you have some strange stuff over there, but okay. That's the layer where you want to be in. So we want to be your sparring partner at that point in time. Joost is there, of course, as well. But now the fixing stuff. What are the elements that you need to take into account by far? What's the first step you're going to make? The first step after you encountered the European Union, and you make that step into creating an organization and to make an entity over there and set up that entity. And once you have that, there's a bunch of registrations that you need to do. That registration starts with the tax registration. But admittedly, it has to be the VAT registration in itself, because That's the first tax that you will encounter. Of course, income tax will play a role, just as it does in the US. The IRS is the same as, it's almost the same. I do feel that compared to the IRS, the administrations in Europe are a little bit more known for dealing with foreign entities, simply because we have more. There is no need for IRS people to have a big knowledge of foreign companies. In Europe, none of the countries would survive without US foreign direct investments, which automatically means that our administrations are more likely to know what the IRS documentation is about. So that means that you will get a sort of easy way in once you have a setup of a company, or if you want to do business without that company, which is also a possibility. We won't go into that, but it's easy to set up the registration for tax purposes. And you start with the VAT. And next to that, you would have a look at, what do I need to do more? Do you want to import goods, for instance? Then it's wise to get a license for that. And that's called an Article 23 license. That's an article that's in the law. But Article 23, that says, okay, once you import goods into the Netherlands, you don't have to pre-finance the VAT upon that one. So if you send 100,000 euros of $100,000 of goods to the Netherlands, at the importation, you will only pay the custom duties and not the 21% VAT on that one, and then reclaim that one later back. So that's a mere financial advantage that you have if you ask that. If you look at it, then you will do business, probably with personnel, boots on the floor, and it will make profits. And the fun part about the Netherlands, and you see that with a number of countries as well, the Netherlands is not the only one, but we do have the most tax treaties with foreign countries. So even if your network already consists of multiple country entities, we would always find a way to have, for you, the easiest way to have the tax burden diversified to the specific places that you want to have it. I'm not going to say that we are able to lower your tax rate dramatically, because that's not true anymore. And anybody who tells you that, they didn't read the OECD, which is a sort of overall worldwide organization that takes care of taxes. Now you have the readiness of each and every country to say, okay, I'm good with whatever is in my country, and what comes to my country has to come to the country. And you don't have those, Panama, Bermuda, or whatever kind of tax haven or harbors anymore. But it's good to know that once your money is in Europe, it's also easy to get that out of Europe. What you see in a number of countries is that once you deal there, some Eastern European countries, and for instance in Italy, you have some regulation that still keeps the money inside that country. And that's something you don't want, because if you want to expand, you need that money to do different things. What we also have are tax incentives, of course. Once you come over, it could be that you're creating a sort of permanent establishment over here, in the sense of also boots on the ground that do R&D, or any other kind of project related to inventive or ESG, or highly productive, innovative productions. If you have that, you could always have a look on the incentives side. And that's mostly done via taxes. So what you see is normally that everybody would speak about incentives as something that's subsidizing and so forth. But in Europe, 9 out of 10 times, this is done via the tax. And I think it's almost the same in the US. I'm not too sure about that, but subsidizing goes via your income tax, largely. I talked about the large tax treaty network. The benefit for you is that indeed those dividends and so forth can be brought to the US quite easily. what you normally see is that you either have an Inc. or you have the private companies, the S corps. Especially when the S corps are there, it's for you good to know that your worldwide income, which you already know, I don't have to tell you that because you're coming from the US, is tax levied at the level of the US for the complete income, which automatically means that from a Dutch perspective, you are not taxed. And that is kind of nice to know because there's a small, little small margin because there will be from the OECD some guidelines on what there is, but effectively that is less than 1%, which automatically means that you are still able to grow within your own structure and deal with the taxes almost as if you are running it solely from the US and in the US. For the people that you will send over, there's a nice tax allowance that we have right now. Joost already touched it a little bit. He said, okay, if you're coming here, make sure that you go to the NFIA, make sure upfront that you notify us that you will bring people in because we need some stuff and documentation in order to start that. But it's really good to have that one because if you have a closer look at that regulation, it says, okay, the Netherlands is an expensive, more expensive country to live in from a tax perspective than it is in the US right now. It's 10% more taxable. Automatically, if you are coming from abroad and you build up a company because the entity just started there, there is some expertise on your side that's applicable, but where the 30% ruling can be applied for. Well, the straightest way to say that is that instead of 50%, you only pay 30%. And that is a real go-to think of. You have to do that once you send over people from the US to the Netherlands. It's not for eternity, it's only for 10 years, or 5 years now, already 5 years already. But still, it's a good incentive because after 5 years, you will have gone through the growth and probably have a Dutch or another European person working for you. I think that will cover the majority of what we would like to tell, but I can imagine that perhaps there are more questions now. Hopefully not, hopefully not. Hopefully you get the feeling that, okay, if we go to those guys, we know that we can at least have a start, but let's start and have the conversation and see where we can bring you. Thanks very much.
Everyone, feel free to drop any questions you have in the chat or the Q&A function, and we'll go ahead and start answering those. I can start out with a quick question. You guys kind of framed yourselves, at least Marie did, as the gateway to Europe. Where do you see most companies who establish themselves in the Netherlands, selling their product or sourcing their product or branching out into Europe? Where's the country they most go to?
It would be Germany, UK also, of course, but that's from heritage. Spain, Italy, and France, next to the Netherlands. That's also the majority of the people, eh?
Yeah, and I think as the UK, of course, that I think was or is still is the #1 country for US companies to go in because it's, well, a lot of things are the same, but please bear in mind the UK is not part of the EU anymore. So I always advise if your main customers or your biggest market is the UK, please go to the UK. But if your main customers are in the EU, although it might be tempting to set up your company or your headquarters in London, you have to go to the EU because there's so many rules are changing now and are not the same anymore. So please bear in mind that the UK is not a part of the EU anymore.
And
I think we
I
have
agree. I can agree to the mentioned countries. Germany, from the Netherlands, 80% of the export goes to Germany. And indeed, France is important, Spain, Italy. Yeah.
I think we have some questions in the chat, I saw.
One question on IP came in. How about IP in Europe? And then it was gone. So I'm not sure where it went.
I'm seeing it on there. So it says, what about protecting intellectual property in the EU? Would I need to get patents to reach in each EU country? How well is IP respected?
That's a good question. Thank you very much for asking this question. Yeah, we have a system in Europe where you can base the protection on some treaties. And if you base it on the treaties and follow those treaties, it's sort of ticking the box in which country you would like to protect your IP. So that is a pretty easy process. So then you don't need to go to each country because that's covered by a treaty. How well is IP respected? In general, I would say it's very well respected. But it also boils down to whether you have registered your IP. But in general, it's well respected. Although we also have some copycats, like in every country. But I think in principle, it's well respected. And if you have registered, you can take easy action to it in several ways. Of course, you can go to court, but you can also, in some cases, you can also talk to customs. If you know that there will be a shipment of counterfeit goods entering a country, you can ask the customs to stop them at the border so that they won't be distributed in the Netherlands or in Europe. So, and basically, it's well respected, I would say, in general. Although we have some copycats, of course. I think next question is more for you, Hans.
More kind of like for me. Before everybody doesn't go to Italy and don't want to go to Italy because the money stays in, that's not really true. You did hear me right. It is easy to get money generated in Europe out of Europe again. So that's a standard. Goes also for Italy. If you make profits, you can still get it out. The only thing that's a little bit more difficult in Italy if you have a VAT refund. And VAT is also in Italy on a high rate. So it's already 1/5 of your total turnover. And the rotten thing is, if you have a production site over there and you export everything, so you don't offset VAT that you encounter. So if you buy in with VAT and you sell out without VAT because local rules allow you to sell out without VAT, it is difficult to get that money. You have to wait for it almost a year then. And in the past, we've seen that even 4 or 5 years were there. Well, they're out of that, but it only relates to the VAT position that you might have in Italy. And then, very specific, you buy in Italy, there's VAT on that one, and you sell out of Italy, which means you can't offset it. So before everybody hates Italy, it's really a nice and beautiful country, and that they will, in the end of the day, repay you.
So I don't know about Rian and Richard, whether we've answered your questions or whether you have some follow-up questions.
Austria. Well, almost the same as the Netherlands. Austria, the only thing that Austria doesn't have is a big harbor, but still they are, due to the location in the center of Europe, between the western part of Europe and the eastern part of Europe, trade-wise a party to deal with. What you see there is that it's well, you see that a number of companies are headquartered in Switzerland due to tax reasons, but from a if you do business with Eastern European countries, it's easy to do businesses from Austria as well.
And perhaps I have a question to the people attending. Is there anyone already doing business in Europe or in the Netherlands?
The tax advantage of Switzerland, I see, but first, well, we'll see the answers coming in. The tax advantage in Switzerland was in the past, and that's now going away rapidly. In the past, it was kind of like you could have a headquarter whereby there are no bank connections between the IRS and Switzerland. And actually, that was the case. That was everything. And Switzerland had a number of tax treaties as well. And what they did is that you can be headquartered in Switzerland, you don't have to pay anything, and you can have your money over here without other people knowing it. And what we do, for a certain amount, you can create an entity over here that we will see as a Swiss residented company. And what you see is that a number of huge international companies created entities over there in order to secure a number of items, because from a bank perspective, but also from knowing what everything is about, worldwide income wise, it is irritating if the US says, hey, your worldwide income is taxable. And if then 2/3 of your income doesn't come from the US and is still income taxed, then you want to have a Swiss company. But that's not the case anymore, I believe. I know for sure that the benefits are not there anymore. But difference that you had in the 1980s up until 2013 was really the safety of banks that didn't intertwine or talk to the IRS.
Yeah, I see another question. Is there a good resource to find trade shows or other opportunities to explore market opportunities in the Netherlands? Yeah, I think the first good source would be the Netherlands Foreign Investment Agency. On their website, they have a good overview of trade shows and other opportunities. I think also the WTC organizes some trade shows. Perhaps Marie-José, you can also elaborate a little bit on this, because I understand that sometimes these trade shows are also taking place in the World Trade Centers.
That's true. I confirm. They take place in the World Trade Centers, and we also right in the middle of the network what's happening in the trade show world, other resources. In fact, every month we organize a free international consultancy hour. You can drop all your questions what you're looking for there. It's on the principle free to enter, pay to stay, and we can connect you to the parties you're looking for. But the World Trade Centers are definitely a good resource for exploring opportunities in the Dutch markets. And maybe Hans and Joost can agree that RVO, the economic department, the websites could be helpful. They promote trade missions, trade shows as well. We can share the link in the chat or in the email afterwards.
It's indeed part of our Ministry of Economic Affairs. It's called the Dutch Enterprise Agency. They also helped with giving information. And of course, trade shows are an excellent opportunity to get a taste of the market, see the products of your would-be competitors, but also showcase your own products. But please bear in mind that before you even go to trade shows, think about your IP. Because I've had numerous cases where people said, somebody else registered my IP. I said, what happened? Well, we went to a trade show, and apparently somebody walked in that trade show and thought, well, this is a nice product, this is a nice brand. And they already had this Dutch person already registered this brand. And since we have first come, first served, we had to try to get it back, which in the end was successful, but it cost much more time and money compared to when you registered before going to a trade show. So going to a trade show, excellent opportunity. really good to do, but think about your IP. Some other sources, also missions. I know that sometimes the US the US also Trade Commission also and Chambers of Commerce also organize missions to the Netherlands, where you can participate. That's also a good opportunity. And I also see that Spain, Germany, Italy, Ukraine. Well, that's how about ease of doing business in those countries? I know a little bit about them. What I hear from my clients doing business in these countries is that the level of English is difficult. So that's of course a big plus of the Netherlands. But I'm also curious to know about your experience in these countries. But I also see that we're nearing the time. Yeah, Germany is good for, yeah, I fully agree. The others are indeed more difficult. Yeah, that's also what's my understanding. Germany is pretty good, but the others are much more difficult. But I also thank you very much for your questions, but I see that we are nearing the end of the time. So I would like to wrap up because we promised to do this in 1 hour. You will all have busy agendas. I think for us, the day is getting to an end. And for you, it's just starting. I would really like to thank you very much for attending this webinar and listening to our seminars and our presentations. Thank you very much for the questions. In my view, the Netherlands is an excellent opportunity to start doing business in Europe. Of course, I'm not entirely objective, but I just listen to my clients. I just listen to reviews I read, and my clients say it's easy. Not only for me doing business, but also for my family. And a lot of clients say, if my family is happy, my business is always doing better because then I will be happy. So also for family members living in the Netherlands, we have excellent schools. For children, it's easy to go around because indeed everybody speaks English. So once again, thank you very much. Thank you, WTC in Utah, for giving us the opportunity. I really enjoyed. So don't hesitate to contact us via email or phone. I understand, Royan, that you will share our presentations and the contact details. So I'm looking forward to meeting you by email or by phone. Don't hesitate. And hopefully I will meet you in the Netherlands, and which will be a start of a successful business in Europe. Thank you very much for attending this seminar.